Okay, base test. One who brings a bill of divorce from overseas and says
Hold on,
it
no,
was
no, 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 no. Base five. Test is the new stuff for today.
base of
Vav, yeah,
of.
yeah.
Why did I put that over there? I always do those crazy things. Okay, here we go. Dalet hey. Oh. Okay. One who betrothed one of two his sisters, but does not know which one of them he betrothed, must divorce each of them. If he died and left one brother, he performs chalitza with both. If he left two brothers, performs chalitza, and then the other may perform yibum. However, if they went ahead and married them, we do not force them to divorce. Two men who betrothed two sisters. Neither one knows which one he has betrothed. Each of them gives two divorces. If they died and left a brother, which each performs chalitza with both. If one left brother, and the other left two brothers, the single brother performs chalitza with both. And of the two, one performs the chalitza, and the other may perform ribum. However, if they went ahead and married them, we do not force them to divorce. If each left two brothers, a brother of one performs Kalitza with one of the sisters, and a brother of the other performs Kalitza with the other sister, then the two remaining brothers may perform Yubim with the widowed and who receive Kalitza from the other's brother. If both went ahead and perform Kalitza, the two may not perform Yibum, but one may perform Kalitza and the other may perform Yibum. However, if they went ahead and married them, we did not force them to divorce. Okay. And one more, we have commandment for the elders is to perform Yibum, but the youngest anticipated him, he gains it. One who suspected a connection of a slave with a slave woman, and she was then freed, or in connection with a non-Jewish woman, and she was then converted, may not marry her. But if he did marry her, we did not force him to divorce her. One who suspected a connection with another man's wife, and they compelled him to divorce her, even if he married her, he must divorce her.
Okay.
Okay.
So now, taking a tangent off that last statement that of people who are not permitted to marry somebody else. This also applies in Mishnah Tes. Hamevi get min medina sayam. So let's say a shaliach comes to bring a get. Now we've learned many times in Gittin, if somebody acts as a shaliach to bring a get from overseas, he has to testify himself and say, "B'fanai nichtab, b'fanai nichtab." It was written and signed in front of me, so I'm telling you it was written properly, kadas kadin, and this woman is allowed to remarry. Okay, so now they are effectively relying on this one guy's testimony, even though you can see the get in front of you and it's been signed by witnesses and it's all written correctly. Nonetheless, there's a certain amount that you're relying on his testimony that this is a good get because it's coming from Medina Sayyam. Okay, so he's come and said this, and they allowed, and now the woman is officially divorced and allowed to remarry. Lo Yisai Seshto. He is not allowed to be the one to remarry her because it's dependent on his testimony. So if there's a negative incentive over here for him, he could be lying just because he's put his eyes on this woman. Okay. So it's based on his testimony that this woman is being allowed to remarry. Similarly, if a person comes and gives testimony about the husband's death, Mace, if he just comes and says, "Look, I know that this man died." Remember, if you recall, Chazal said that a woman is allowed to remarry on the testimony of one witness if that he's died, because they wanted women to be able to remarry, and you don't have to try and scrape up two witnesses from around the world to try to say that a certain guy died in battle or whatever. Okay, Mace haragtiv, even if he says I killed him. Haragnuhu. Oh, I was in a band of people and we killed him. Okay. Lo yisai sishto. Again, his testimony is accepted, but he's not allowed to be the guy to remarry the woman because now this is a perverse incentive.
Mm.
Rabbi Yehuda Omer, haragtiv lo tinasai ishto. If he comes and says I killed him, he cannot marry the woman because this is um, because he's making himself because he's making himself into a Russia. That's by saying that he's that um, that I killed him, um, assuming there was no justification to like he wasn't saying like I killed him in self-defense. That Rabbi Yehuda would agree is fine. Haragnuhu tinaseh ishto. But if he says I was with a band of people and we killed him, he's not stating that I was the guy who did it. So says Rabbi Yehuda that he would be allowed to marry the widow.
Kind of strange.
Um, Haragnuhu, but why would he would be allowed to marry the widow? That's actually going further than the Tanakama, who says you're not allowed to marry her because you're relying on his testimony. Why does this not also? Um,
It says in the commentary that when he says we killed him, he was the court assumes he only means he was an observer among the group. If he said I killed him, then that would be a different story.
Right. But the interesting thing is over here that, okay, so the halacha is that ein adam mesim at morasha. A person is not believed to testify against himself to make him a rasha. So what we do is we say we halgin and dibura. We split his words, even though he said it in one sentence. We when he says we killed him, I killed him. There are two things there are two aspects to what he's saying. He's saying I saw him dead, and
Mhm.
that we accept. I saw him dead. The other side is I did the killing, and we say we don't accept that. So we
Right.
actually can split his words and not believe him on that. Um, but it's interesting that Rabbi Yehuda seems to take a different track from the Chachamim. The Chachamim was saying that, yeah, we'll believe you under all of these circumstances, but you can't be the guy to marry her because you have a perverse incentive to testify that he's dead so that you can marry her. Um, but if he, so why does he, so why does he split it? It seems like he's saying that we can't split his words and we can't believe him at all if he says that. So it seems like there's a confluence of two different things that Rabbi Yehuda holds. One, that you can't split his words, and if he says haragti or so, we can't believe him at all. Not even that the guy is dead. But he's on the other side, he's more makil to say that look, if all he's saying is that I saw him dead, then there's no problem with him remarrying the widow. So lichora, based on my svara over here, he's disagreeing with the beginning of this statement as well. If he says mace, if a guy certainly if a guy comes and says, "Oh, I saw him dead," Rabbi Yehuda is going to permit him to remarry the widow. Um, okay, Yud Hachacham.
You said remarry the widow.
Yes, it'll be her second marriage.
Right, right, right. So remarry. All right, okay.
Um, okay, yeah, I shouldn't have said remarry. Just marry is good enough. Um, Okay, Yud. Chacham she'asar es ha'isha b'neder al ba'ala. Okay, when a we know about nedarim because we do this every year that if you have a neder and you want to revoke it, you need a based in of three people. But what we don't do, but is also possible, is if you have a chacham, a single chacham who's an expert in nedarim, he can be materet by himself without a based in. So he has the power to say yes or no to a neder. Now, a woman made a neder that she was asked to her husband, and she came before a chacham to have the neder annulled, and the chacham questioned her about this neder, and he came out with the conclusion that I'm sorry, you took on this neder fair and square, and I cannot annul it for you. Okay, so now what does she have to do? She has to get divorced. So it's basically based on the word of this chacham, the husband has to divorce her. So this chacham she'asa esa isha ben neder al bala harei ze lo yinasena yisaena. He is not allowed to marry her now. Obviously, perverse incentives. You cannot. The it's not a good look for a chacham to say, no, your husband must divorce you, and then he goes and marries her. Not a good look. However, Me'ana, if you have a young girl who was married to Rabbanan, remember she was an orphan and she refused the marriage. That's the power that she has because it's a marriage to Rabbanan. Chachamim gave her also the permission, the power to say, I don't like living with this man anymore, and she walks out simply. So all she has to do is b'miyun in front of the Beis Din, or shechalza b'fanav. Or similarly, if a Yevama does chalitza in front of him as part of the Beis Din, Yisayena, he has there's no problem with anyone on that Beis Din marrying this woman who is now permitted to be married, right? Why? Because they're part of the Mipnei Shehu Beis Din. They're just carrying out the function of the Beis Din to observe a legal fact. So that it's
Right.
not that they paskened and now she's mutter. It's just that they were there to observe a legal fact and let nature take its course. Okay. V'chulan shehayu lahem nashim v'meisu. Now, what happens if at the time that this act happened? So let's say the chacham wasn't matzah the neder. Um, right, is or and when it says v'chulam, it's not just talking about this Mishnah, it's talking about the previous Mishnah as well. The aide who came and said, "I saw him dead,"
Mhm.
or the one who brought the divorce from overseas. And now this woman, and they were married at the time that this happened. Okay, the right Vamesu, and now the wife died. Now, mutaros linaselehem. At this point, they are allowed to get married again to this woman that they permitted with their testimony or with their actions. And because we don't go so far as to suspect that they planned their wife to die, and then that they should be able to marry this other woman. Okay?
Right.
Right. So you can write whatever speculative crime fiction you like, but we're not suspecting that they planned for their wife to die for this. Okay. V'chulan shenis'u la'acherim. And similarly, if this woman that they permitted to remarry got married to somebody else, the nisgarshu or nis almanu, and then subsequently they were widowed or divorced from the second marriage. Mutaras li Again, they're allowed to remarry because they weren't to know that there's no suspicion at this point that they did it. They got the guy to specifically marry her and then divorce her so that they would be permitted. That's a bridge too far. V'chulan mutaras livneihen or le'achehen. And furthermore, um, if let's just take the case of the rabbi who paskined on the neder and said she has to get divorced. His son is allowed to marry this woman, which again is it's also quite a chiddush because if somebody was going to have a conspiracy because he wanted his son to have a nice shidduch,
Right. I,
they could do it. But nonetheless, the Mishnah is telling us they're only suspected regarding themselves. It's only a bad look regarding themselves, but for their son, cool.
okay.
A son or brother, for that matter, as long as it's not themselves. Okay, Perik Gimel, Arba Achin. This is an absolute peach of a chapter. I'm actually busy learning this with my son-in-law in Gemara. Um, and it's an absolute peach of a chapter. Because if you want to really get into the most complicated cases in Yevamos, this is your Perik. Okay. Arba'a Achin. Now let me just check. Does this have any nice diagrams in Art Scroll?
I have one here.
Okay, let me just find that one over here. We got next. No, I don't see any. That's a pity. I don't see any in my on my page.
I
Anyway,
have this. I can see.
okay, fine. So I don't have that one. All right. So you got your four brothers. Shnayim mehen nisuim shtei achayos. And they're married to two sisters. Okay, so your four brothers. Let's go. Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. Reuben and Shimon are married to Leah and Rachel. Okay, and Reuben and Shimon both die. So now, Leah and Rachel, is that what they've named them in your diagram, by the way?
Right there, Yehuda, Ruvain, Rachel, Leah, Shimon, and Levi.
Okay, so the
They're
ones who died presumably are Reuben and Shimon, and Rachel and Leah are the widows. So we've got Levi and Yehuda left behind with Rachel and Leah.
right.
Now, this is where we start talking about the concept of zika. Okay, zika is a connection a dependency connection, or I don't know if it's a dependency, but it's if that's the right word. But basically, there is a natural connection between these brothers. It's a premarital connection uh,
Mhm.
between them. It's weaker than a kiddushin for sure. It's weaker. It's much weaker than a kiddushin, but there is such a thing. Okay, that there's some sort of a connection, and because it's similar to a marriage connection, we also apply the rules of relatives of which relatives are prohibited
Right.
through that connection. So because let's just take Levi, okay? Levi looks at Rachel and says, "Oh, I'd like to marry her." But he's got a problem because he's also got he's got a zikr both to Levi, both to Rachel and to Leah. And Rachel and Leah are sisters. And now that means that Rachel is his zakuka. Now she's not his wife, but she's a zakuka, and that's her sister. Now you're not allowed to marry your wife's sister, and therefore you're also not allowed to marry your zakuka's sister. Okay, so we cannot allow Levi to do yibum with uh, with with
Rachel.
with either Rachel or Leah, and the same thing, of course, goes for Yehuda. So then what
Mhm.
must they do? Hare elu choltos v'lo misyavmos. They have to do chalitza. They may not do yibum because you have the situation that both of them are achos zekukaso. Okay. Im kadmu v'kadensu yotziu. If they went ahead and got married, they must be divorced because this is an asur relationship, as opposed to the previous ones where we said, look, it's not a good it doesn't look good if you remember the situation where he wasn't sure which sister he was married to. Here we have a vadai. Both of these sisters are asur for you to be married to. Okay.
But since she's ushered to marry him, if she before they have a divorce, if she is pregnant, has a child, that child becomes a mamzer then?
Is it a mamzer?
Right.
Oh, I'm going to say that's going to be a mamzer durabanan.
Mhm.
That's my guess on it. Like a mamzer. Well, can you have a hang on? Do you have a mamzer durabanan? I'm not sure because mamzeris is one of the things that Chazal are at pains to try and avoid. So if it's not a doraisa, maybe it's not. I don't know.
Mm.
Don't know. Would their child be a mamzer? It might be that we cover this later, and I've forgotten if we do. Um, it's possible. It depends on how you view the din of Zika, because if Zika prohibits her on the Doraisa level, then yes, it's gonna be a mamzer because it's Eishes Ach shelo Achos Ishto shelo b'makom because it's Eishes Ach shelo b'makom mitzvah. Um, but nonetheless, if she does require chalitza, that's an indication that Minatora she does need either yibum or chalitza. So I don't know.
Okay.
It's a difficult question. That is a very good question, and I can't give you an answer to that one yet.
Okay.
Anyway, Rabbi Eliezer says, Beis Shammai omrim yikaimu, ubeis Hillel omrim yotziu. So yeah, so Rabbi Eliezer says this is a machlokes Beis Hillel Beis Shammai, where Beis Shammai come out on the Makil side for a change. That if they did get married, it's nonetheless okay. And he says that is the machlokes. Um, and we can't read anything into that to say that okay, so definitely Beis Shammai then wouldn't hold that there's a mamzer if you're allowed to stay married. The question, of course, would be according to Beis Hillel, would there be mamzerim? Okay, that's it for today. Roll up your sleeves for some more beautiful cases as we carry on tomorrow.
Hey, Kagiga. We have base Gimel, base Daled, base
Got it.
Daled. If Shavuos falls on the eve of the Sabbath, Beis Shammai says the day of the slaughter is after the Shabbos. Beis Hillel says there's no day of slaughter after the Shabbos, and they occur that if it fell on the Sabbath, they thought of the day of slaughter is after the Sabbath. The Kohen Gadol does not don his special garments on that day. Moreover, they are permitted to eulogize and fast, and in order not to confirm the view of those who say that Shavuos is always the day after Shabbos. We may wash the hands for unsanctified food for Meiser, for Tshuva, but for Kodesh we must immerse his hands. Regarding the water of cleansing, if one's hand becomes contaminated, his entire body is considered contaminated. If one immersed himself in unsanctified food and only intended to cleanse himself from unsanctified food, he is prohibited from eating Misa. If he immersed himself for Misa and only intended to cleanse himself from Misa, he is prohibited from eating Truma. If he immersed himself for Truma and only intended to cleanse himself of, and only intended to cleanse himself of Truma, he is prohibited from eating Kodesh. If he immersed himself in Kodesh and only intended to cleanse himself of Kodesh, he is prohibited from touching cleansed water of cleansing. If he immersed himself for a more stringent matter, he is permitted to occupy himself with a less stringent matter. And if he immersed himself without any intention, it is deemed as if he had not immersed himself. Okay. And we go on to Tanis base Vav. The first three fast days, the Kohanim of the Mishmar do fast, but do not complete their fast. The Kohanim of the base do not fast at all. On the second three fast days, the Kohanim of the Mishmar fast and complete their fast. The Kohanim of the base do fast, but do not complete their fast. On the last 7 days, both groups fast and complete their fast, and this is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. But the comments say, on the first three fast, neither group fast at all. On the second three fasts, the Kohanim of the Mishmar fast, but do not complete their fast, and the Kohanim of the base Av do not fast at all. On the last 7 days, fast days, the Kohanim of the Mishmar fast and complete their fast, and the Kohanim of the base Av fast, but do not complete their fast. The Kohanim of the Mishmar are permitted to drink wine at night, but not during the day. The Kohanim of the base Av are not permitted to drink wine during the day or during the night. The Kohanim of the Mishmar and men of the Memam are prohibited from haircutting and laundering. However, on Thursday, these activities are permitted in honor of Shabbos. Whenever it is written in the scroll of fast, we do not to utilize on a particular day. On the day before, fasting is forbidden. On the day after, fasting is permitted. Rabbi Yossi says both before and after fasting is forbidden. Concerning days about which is written on the scroll of fast, not to fast on them. Both before and after them, fasting is permitted. Rabbi Yossi says before them, fasting is forbidden, and after them, fasting is permitted.
Okay. Pesachim.
Tesvav. Said Rabbi Yehuda, I have heard that the substitute of the Pesach is offered, and that the substitute of the Pesach is not offered, but I cannot explain it. Rabbi Kiva says, I will explain, but if the original Pesach offering was found before the slaughtering of the substitute Pesach, or it must be left to pasture until it develops a blemish. It's then sold, and a peace offering is bought with its proceeds. And so this is the rule regarding of a substitute. But if it was found after the slaughtering of the substitute Pesach, is offered as a peace offering, and so the rule regards the substitute. If someone designates a female animal for his Pesach offering or a male in the second year, it must be left to pasture until it develops a blemish and is sold, and its money is placed in the donated offering chest. If one had designated a Pesach offering and then died, and someone who inherits it may not bring it as a Pesach offering, but rather as a peace offering. If the Pesach offering was confused with other offerings, it must be left to pasture until they develop blemishes and are sold. Then he should bring this type of offering equivalent in value to the best of them, and he should bring the other type of equivalent of offering equivalent to the value of the best of them, and he must cover the added cost from his own purse. If it was confused with firstborn offerings, Reb Shimon says that the group is composed of Kohanim, they may eat the offerings. Okay. On to Caleb. Okay. Only spun and woven goods go under the prohibition of Kalayim, with which it is written, you shall not wear shatnez, that which is shua, tave, and nose. Reb Shimon ben Elazar says not those, and he is estranged, and estranged his father and is in heaven against him. Felted materials are forbidden because they're combed, and etching of wool on linen is forbidden because it interfaces with the web. The Rebbe Yossi says purple woolen cords are forbidden because one stitches them in order that they may hold up until the tying up. One may not tie a woolen with a flaxen ribbon to gird one's loins, even though there is a strap in the middle. The marks of weavers and the marks of laundrymen are forbidden on account of Kalayim. A single stitch is not considered fastening, and it does not come under the prohibition of Kalayim. And if one does does it on the Sabbath, he is exempt. If one brings both ends to the same side, it is fastening and comes under the prohibition of Kalayim. And if one undoes it on the Sabbath, he is liable. And Rabbi Yehuda says only one makes three, and a sack and basket combined can constitute Kalayim. Okay, Hadron Allah.
Tomorrow is Shvius.
Shvius. Wow. Caleb, here we go. Cuff base. A bagpipe is impervious to Midrash Tumah regarding a trough of Pizon. Beis Shammai says it is acceptable for Midrash Tumah, but Beis Hillel says it's only acceptable to becoming Tamei with Korf's Tumah. Regarding a trough with a capacity of between 2 logs and 9 cows that is cracked and it is susceptible to becoming tummy with midrash tuma, and with one left in the rain and it's swelled, it is susceptible to becoming tummy with a corpse tumor. He then placed it in the east wind and it developed a crack. It is susceptible to midrash tumor. This is a stringency that applies to the amendment of wooden utensils over the original utensils, and is contingency that applies to the remnants of wicker utensils over the original utensil that is originally, but they are not acceptable to tumor until their rims are secured. But if their rims are secured, even though their rims fell away, and only the smallest amount of the rim remains. They are tummy. Regarding a stick that was made into a handle for an axe, it is considered connected with regard to tumor while in use. Regarding a dustar, it is considered connected with regard to tumor while in use. If one set it into a post, it is tummy, but is not considered connected to the post. If one made it a dustar, only that part which it needs is tummy. Regarding a chair that one set into a post, it is tummy, but not considered connected to it. If one made a chair only its place is tummy, and only if he attached it to the beam of the olive press is it tummy, but not considered connected to it. If one made a chair at the top of the beam, it is tahor because people say don't stand up, so we may do our work. Regarding a large straw that was too damaged to hold pomegranates, and one prepared to sit on it, Rabbi Kiva was a tummy, but there were sages who were tahor until one cuts it up. If he made it even to a manger, even if he set it in the wall, it is tummy. Okay.
Right.
And more makos. Okay. Aleph Hey. If others came and they discredited him, and they still came in, and others still came and they discredited them, two, even 100, all of them are executed. The Yehuda says this is a group of plotters, and only the first group is executed. Solomon witnesses are not executed unless the verdict has been delivered. For the Sadducees say, unless he has been executed, as it is said, a life for a life. The sages said to him, has it not already been stated that you should do to him as he planned to do to his brother, indicating that his brother is still alive? If so, why does it say a life for a life? Because it might be thought that from the time the testimony is accepted, they not be executed. The Torah therefore accepts a life for a life to teach that they are not executed unless a verdict has been issued. Well, the testimony of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses shall the one who has died be put to death. Now, if the testimony be established by 2, why the scriptures specify by 3? It is compared 3 to 2. Just as 3 can discredit 2, 2 can discredit 3. How do we know that this is true even for 100? To teach that this is says witnesses. Rabbi Yehuda says, just as 2 are not executed unless both are proved Zomerman, so 3 are not executed unless the 3 of them are proved Zomerman. How do we know that this is true even for 100? To teach that it is says witnesses. Rabbi Kiva says the third witness is mentioned only for the purpose of dealing stringently with him and to make a sentence the same as these. Now, if Scripture punished one who joined transgressors, like the transgressors themselves, how much more will it reward the one who joins those who perform the mitzvah, the same as those who perform the mitzvah? Okay, good.
Okay. Very good. All
Okay,
right.
good.
I'm late.
Have a great. See you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye.